Hey everybody, welcome to Unscripted, where we're all about inspiring better conversations and thinking more deeply and critically about faith, life, and leadership. And here I am. My name is Sam. I'm here with the best guest I will ever have on this podcast, my most favorite guest I could ever possibly have on this podcast. I invited my wife, Meg, to hang out and talk with me for a little while.
That's
Meg.
a lot to live up to.
It is the best, for sure.
Thank you. Yes, this is quite the setup, and yeah, we'll see how this goes.
So how did I convince you to actually get on here? I can't even remember. Did you was this hard for me to convince you? I think it was a little tough for a little while.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I kind of just let it happen.
I think you're right.
Yes. It just kind of worked out, and I'm here and like, okay, whatever. I'm always up for something new.
Yes, you are. I was like, hey, we're going to do this podcast, and I think you're going to be on it. And you're like, okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much how it happened. So I think a lot of people know who you are and they've seen you around, but I think what I was hoping for this to be is a chance for people to maybe get to know you a little bit better. So what I was hoping that you would start off for us with is just give a little intro about yourself, who you are, a little bit about yourself, just like the quick facts.
Quick facts.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Married to you for almost 11 years. I think I've been here at RCC since, 2002, 2003. So for a long time, went to college here at Ripon College. Have done various different things after that with marketing and communication and small business. And we have 3 crazy boys at home. Right now I work full time for Cultivate What Matters. And it's really fun. We get to help women live intentional lives. We do that through content and products. And so that's kind of like personal and professional a little bit. But otherwise, besides that, I'm from Wisconsin, from Ripon. This is our hometown. That's probably something we could talk about for a long time, but yeah. That's
awesome. I think that's crazy because we've talked about this a little bit, and it's kind of a little known fact. You were here long before I was here, right?
Here meaning church.
Yeah, at RCC. Yes, definitely.
Yes.
And I think it's funny because literally you're responsible for me having a job here.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
I guess so. I was very big on internships in college and always trying to get in with some mentorships or internships. And I remember you saying you were interested in ministry. And I was like, well, you got to email somebody. You got to reach out and test it or see what you can do. And so I think I did ask you, you should email Mike. Just email Mike. I don't even know if you came
I'd not been to church yet. Maybe once.
I think I was coming for a few years at that point.
Yeah.
And then you emailed, Mike responded, right?
Yeah. I was like, well. Hey, do you want to have an intern, a youth intern? Just randomly, here's who I am. And he's like, yeah, let's meet. But literally, I remember we were at Basic Books Coffee House in Oshkosh. I remember sitting there.
Basic Books.
It's not even there anymore. But I remember having that conversation, I'll just email him. And look at where we are, 15 years later.
Yes.
That's wild.
Yeah, good point.
So we have 3 boys, Ramsey, Archer, and Silas, and 9-year-old, 6-year-old, 18-month-year-old. You've lived we've had a crazy last 10 years. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about is over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been the reality that hey, I've been in ministry here for a while. You've been doing a couple of different positions, and we've kind of always dreamt about and talked about what the next thing was. And for 3-4 years ago, there was hey, maybe someday, this isn't for sure, but maybe someday I would kind of have the possibility of taking over here. Do you remember what your first answer was to that?
Yeah.
What was it?
Well, first off, this is truly unscripted. It's kind of creeping me out a little bit, but yes, I do. I do remember you coming to me 3-4 years ago and saying man, I think I'm on this trajectory of potentially staying in Ripon, and what would you think about what if eventually I were to lead at Ripon? What do you think? And I do believe I think I was very pointed and said, nope.
I remember that. Yep.
No. Yeah. About 3 times. And then that was the end of that, really, right?
It was pretty much the end. I know that was a conversation where oh man, I think we've always dreamt of having going to the mountains or wherever else. So, who knows what it would be. But then,
well, it was a big decision for us too to stay in Ripon, 12 years ago after college. I think that choosing, ministry at that point for us and our family was a huge step out in faith and in like surrender for us, because all of our friends were, moving to the city, going to grad school, moving away. And that had always been like a dream that I had too, of like, oh, what's our next step? And then really figuring out and realizing that our next step is right where we already are, and furthering where we are in Ripon was a hard decision at that point. So then, fast forward 10 more years and to hear you say like, I think Ripon, is where I want to lead more, was hard for me, because always in the back of my mind, I thought, well, Ripon right now, but eventually there's still the opportunity, for more adventure or for different possibilities, which there always is. But so I think at that point I realized like, oh, this is the real thing. Like this is the real deal.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. What changed?
Well, I think lots of conversations between you and I, lots of prayer. And I think, for a long time, I just kind of let it sit, and I didn't think a ton about it, a few years ago, because it was something that scared me, honestly.
Yeah.
And then I think the more that we just continued to take steps in building community here, the more that I learned about how God's wired me and my gifts and what I want our kids to experience, the more I realized like I want to be faithful to what God has given us already and the people that are already in front of us. And oftentimes I think like the people that God gives us aren't the people we expect to maybe serve or do life with. And I had to really come to terms with realizing, like, oh, I think this is really actually what God wants. I think that I could, run away to the more perceived glamorous or romanticized idea of an adventure. And for some people that's great, and that is what God intends. But I knew like deep down that was me running from something and being fearful of what God already had planned for us. And so I think I really had to think through and realize and come to terms with it myself, and not just decide that that was for us because you wanted it. Because I also went through that phase where I was like, I want to be the supportive wife. This is Sam's dream. All right, this is what we're going to do. And I realized like, nope, that's not okay either.
No,
I need to decide for myself that this is what I want for my life too. So I think it was various phases of realizing and becoming confident too, and being okay with being scared, and opening my eyes too, like to what is already in front of me and the possibilities that are already here.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, we've talked about it a lot. Like we were joking, I think the other day, where like if you go somewhere else, like you get the surface level thing of like knowing people, and it's kind of easy to like kind of be friendly with people and get to know them. But when you like been somewhere for a while, you get to know like the nitty gritty and the hard stuff. Yeah. And like you have to know that that's where you're at. And the reality is that's everywhere. But here, like we've experienced that and we've felt it, and we still love. We love this community. We love these people, and we're so excited about being part of this community.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you've been part of this church for a long time, and we have 3 boys. And I wanted to ask you this question: what do you hope that our boys get to experience growing up here and growing up as part of this church?
Yeah, that's a very great question. Well, I hope that they are able to just be themselves, for one thing. Yeah. I already hear stories about what they're doing when I'm not around them at church, and that's humbling. But also, I think that, I want them to see people that love others really well, and I want them to know that they're a part of it as well. I want them to be encouraged and inspired to take care of people. And I also want them to allow themselves to like be a part of a community and be taken care of as well. Yeah. So I think that I'm excited for them to like take part in what a church family can be and is, and grow here at Ripon and be encouraged to be fun, silly, curious, strong, boys.
Yeah, totally. So. I know we talk a lot about like loving God, loving others. Like that's kind of what
that's kind of what we harp on.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And I love how that's just like that's what this church has always been about, and that's what I think our family is about, and it's what we like. That's a dinner table conversation like once a week. Like this is like the thing that we're gonna talk about, and then we go to Minecraft and everything else. What do you hope to experience in these coming years? Like,
yeah, I hope to be a part of a community that's continuously being transformed and continuously humbling themselves. And also, I want to be a part of that myself. Like, I want to be able to be transformed alongside other believers. And I can't wait to be able to see and take part in what God's doing here at Ripon. And I can't wait to be to have an active part in that.
Yeah.
I can't also wait to be able to be encouraged by other people through that.
Yeah.
So I think the most fun is seeing lives be transformed and see people change throughout time. And so I think I'm excited about that. I'm excited just to purely have fun with people. I mean, I've missed people over the past year and a half. So I think we've just started to start to see more and more people a little bit over the past few weeks. So I'm excited about that and forming relationships. And I'm excited to stretch and grow myself just personally. So
yeah, I was thinking about the relationships piece because literally a little over a year ago, we stopped our midweek group, right? Like we were meeting as a midweek group, which is on Wednesday night or Tuesday night, and then the pandemic hits and we're like, okay, we got to pause this in-person thing. We did a couple Zoom meetings, but that's just not the same. And now we're almost about to meet again, for the first time in a while. And it makes me think we've done community groups here for 10 years, for a really long time. You remember some of our first ones?
Yes, we did.
We were in one for a year or two, and then we led our first one 3 years in.
Yes.
Do you remember how that went?
Yes. It was hard.
Yes, it was.
I think there was many times where one person showed up,
yep,
maybe.
Sure.
But there was also really fun times too.
There was awesome times.
I often remember thinking, are we saying are we weird?
We totally are.
But yeah. But yeah, 10 years. I guess yes. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I remember our first community group with Ben and Kelly.
Yep.
And just being able to get together with other people and ask the weird questions and just talk about anything, study something together, but then also just see where the conversation would go and be able to ask those off, questions or just talk about what you had going on that week. Or it just felt like then when you saw people on the weekend at church, you had a crew, you knew people. And those first few years were really fun. But then once we started to step out and try to lead too, that's hard. It is hard. Yeah. But
we have an awesome group right now. I'm so excited to get together with them all. I can't wait to see them all.
I know, in our backyard.
Yes, backyard Bible study. It's going to be great.
It'll be fun.
So on that note, I had one of the thought I was going to, I lost it. Sorry. No, there's another thing. So I wanted to give you a chance to help people know me a little bit better because you know me from a different perspective. So I'm curious if there's any special facts about me that you want people to know as my wife.
Special facts.
Or interesting, quirky things.
Anything goes right now?
Yeah, anything goes.
That people don't already know. Yeah. This is hard. Special facts about Sam. Well, you have really weird dad jokes, really weird dad jokes though. And you often, you just have weird phrases that don't always make sense. You also can recite songs, old songs though, and weird songs.
Yeah, I break into song pretty regularly.
Yeah, you do, but you remember all the lyrics, which I think is very weird. Anything else weird? Your feet smell horribly. I don't know, but I should probably cut it off there.
Sure, let's stop there. That's a good spot to stop. All right. There you go. Now y'all know that's me. Says my wife. Those are the quirky things. I love it.
Maybe I should have been more positive. I'm sorry.
Well, We'll just go with it. I'm all right with that. That's good.
All right.
So I do want to ask another question. This is the thing that I really wanted to get into with you, because it's kind of, I think it's just a fun topic for you to speak to.
Goodness.
Over the past 10, 12 years, you've gone through quite the variety of things that you've owned as your own. So when we first got here and got married, got a house, the whole bit, your first job was to start and run Mug's Coffee House. Yeah. That was the first thing you did. So it's kind of entrepreneurial. You're 22 years old. I think 21, then 22 in the middle of the summer. Yeah. So you're really young.
Yeah.
And then after that, we had a baby. We had Ramsey. And for a while, you stayed at home. You did a little bit of working and staying at home for a while. And then you ended up doing some stay-at-home time. And then you had a couple of jobs around the area that were part-time. You've started an entrepreneurial business. And now you're full-time for the past couple of years, over 2 years, working for Cultivate What Matters. You've done a lot of different things, and you've lived a lot of life in roles that are just different from each other. So you've been a stay-at-home mom, you've done the part-time work thing, you've done the full-time work with 3 kids at home. How does that help you relate to other women? As you think about it, let's start with here. Let's start with this question. What was the most difficult season that you've experienced out of those 10 years?
Most difficult season?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. So I think when you're in a season and it's hard, you think it's the most difficult. And then you mature a little bit, you grow, you get to know other people that are experiencing even deeper pain and suffering, and you realize, goodness, there's so many people are hurting, or so many people are facing challenges. And you also, as you get older, and I mean, we had 2 more babies and different responsibilities, more responsibilities. I think that challenges grow with that too. So I think that it's difficult to pinpoint a certain season and say it was the most difficult, because when you're in it, you kind of tunnel visioned, and you think that's really difficult. And I often do tend to,
you forget.
I block out challenging things, which I think is great, because I just kind of always forge ahead. But yeah, I would say honestly, the last year or 2 years, this last season has been really challenging. And not, I don't shy away from challenges, because I know I'm always growing and stretching during them. But it's probably been the one that I've had to let go of control the most, and surrender my fears the most, and deal with a lot of realities of hurt and suffering more than I think earlier on. Not only with, having Silas and struggling with his health early on, but then the pandemic and those fears, and then the kids were home, and some, our family kind of having some health issues, and then my job was changing because of the pandemic on and off. So lost some friends throughout all of that, with some hard things that came up. So I think that, but this season is very fresh still. Yeah, so totally. That's kind of where I'm at with that. But I would say that I have grown more tender, and while at the same time more sure of where God has me, and more fierce in the confidence that I have through him throughout this last season than I've ever been before in my, last 10, 12 years. Yeah. So there's been many different seasons, I think, that I've gone through since being married to you. Yeah.
No, right?
Yeah.
We've been on a ride. I think it's beautiful, because I know it has been a crazy year, a couple of years, especially when you throw Silas and NICU and all that stuff in it. But I think the thing that I'm so grateful to you for is just the ability that you have to say, hey, this is hard, and this is a difficult thing, but we're going to grow through it. And we're going to be stronger throughout it, and we're going to rely on God, and we're going to continue to say, hey, we're going to be refined through this and grow. And I know we've pushed each other through all that.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Well, if you want to have hard conversations, I'm your girl, because I tend to go there. Yeah. I tend to have the deep conversations. Well, I think that's why you and I work well together, because you're often, hey, let's look on the bright side, this and that, which I think brings a lot of levity and necessity too.
Yeah, so. But you won't let a conflict sit.
No.
If there's an issue, we're going to talk about it.
I do not avoid conflict.
I know. I appreciate that about you a lot. It's also...
And I want to say too, like, over the past, thinking about how many changes that we have gone through in the last 10 years, like I'm very privileged to have been able to think through, like, truly finding my identity and my confidence in God and what calling and the giftings that he's placed in my life, and being able to, like, wrestle through that through 10 years and figure out, like, is it full time at home with the kids? Is it, volunteering in this way? Is it like, how am I truly walking forward in developing the gifts that he's given me and being able to give back and serve the way as though I feel as though I need to serve, and also lead my children really well and love you well. So it's a very privileged position to be in, to be able to, wrestle that out. And not everybody has that opportunity in their lives to really have to think through. So I do notice how privileged and grateful I am for all the experience that I have had, even though it has been challenging and I've had to figure out what is right for our family and for me.
Yeah. What I think has been really great for just, as we've talked about this kind of stuff, is we've experienced different seasons. And so we've been able to relate to people. Like if you're a stay-at-home mom or you have the different dynamics. I mean, and we've talked about it, like there's no one that's easy. None of them are easy. All of them come with their own challenges and are difficult. So it's not like, oh, I worked 40 hours and still a parent and that's really hard. Yeah, it is. I stay at home with my kids. That's really hard. Yeah, it is. I think that's one of the cool things that I feel like we've been able to learn through the last couple of years.
And I think, but the thing that I always remember is, I think as humans, we get so hung up on titles. We get so hung up on positions when I really don't think that's what it's all about. It's not about what you're doing. It's about how you're doing it and what your motive is. And I think that God has placed, different scenarios and giftings in each of our lives. And how are we doing it? Are we loving God and are we loving others well through it? And I think that's all that matters. It's not the position. It's not what it looks like on the outside. And so I think oftentimes when I personally got hung up early on in trying to figure out like my career or how I want to teach the kids or what I want to do, I was always hung up on the what. And I often got tangled up in what maybe success was communicated to me and how I measured that. But I think in reality, once I got free from that, and the most free and fulfilled I have felt is when I'm most consumed and focused on how am I doing this? Am I loving God well? And am I able to love other people well through what I'm doing? And is this what God has for me right now in the season that I'm in? And that's when I feel most like, okay, this is it. Like I'm able to love my family very well. And I'm also able to fulfill the gifts that I have and love other people around me well through what I'm doing. And so it's never been the position, I guess. But yes, anything you do in life can be hard, no matter what. And, especially when we are so focused on the what. Yeah,
I think that's so good. Like it's not what you do, it's how you do it, and like the things you're bringing to it, the motivation you're bringing to it, the heart behind it. And I don't know, that's fantastic. It's really, really good. Man, I'm really grateful for you taking this time to actually talk about this stuff and actually be on the camera and all that whole bit.
I know, this is... Yes, thank you.
It's a lot. I so appreciate it.
You had to convince me, but I'm glad.
I'm really glad you did it as well. So just to finish it out, I want to say thank you. But then too, I'm just really grateful that I get to do this with you. Yeah. And I'm grateful that people hopefully got to know you a little bit better. And like this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm excited about the coming years. And I am
too.
Yeah. in this coming year, in the summer, what's one thing that you're excited about? Just kind of fun, broad scheme.
Yes. What am I excited? Well, we're trying a raised garden bed. We'll see how that goes.
Yes.
So I'm excited. I love the idea of growing our own herbs and things like that in the backyard. I'm also honestly sitting in the backyard while the kids are running around with like an iced coffee or something like that. I'm just excited about sunshine and sitting in the backyard. No work, just chilling out.
Awesome. So yeah, 5 o'clock every day. That's the plan.
Yes, sure.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to say thank you all for tuning in. This is the most special guest I've gotten to have and will ever have. And I'm just really grateful for that. And we'll be back again next week. This is actually our first one after a couple weeks absence. So I'm super excited for this to come out. And again, tune in next week and we'll see y'all in 1 week. So we had one more question that kind of came up after we shut off the cameras. And,
good question.
And I think it's a really good question. But it kind of puts you on the spot. But I think, are you willing to answer it?
You look very nervous, which makes me feel nervous too. But yes, I can. Yes.
All right. Cool. So
this is unscripted.
Yeah.
Right?
This is
so it's
exactly
on the hot seat. In the hot seat.
You're in the hot seat. How's it feel in the hot seat?
Pretty hot.
All right. So the question was this. It came up afterwards. It's what were you nervous about? So you said no originally.
Yes, I did say no. That's going to come back to haunt
No,
me.
it's not. I think it's honest. I love that.
I'm very honest.
So what were you nervous about? Like, so what, how,
goodness.
I think to state the question as clearly as I can, what was it about being the wife of the lead pastor potentially that made you nervous?
Yeah. Well, I think that, pastors' wives can be put on a certain pedestal, and I don't want to be on any pedestal. Honestly, I want to be truly who I am. I also, when you'll learn to know this about me, you already know this about me, Sam. When I agree to something, I almost to a fault agree to like 150%.
Yep.
And you're like, But
it's beautiful.
And it means it's a deep responsibility for me to say that we're going to lead. And I want to be 150% sure that we can love people well, we can lead people well, we can serve people well. And at that point in my life, that freaked me out.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that I was at 150 to say like, yes, I feel as though we are equipped fully to do this. And so I think that, that fear combined with making sure that I want to be myself, I want to be Meg. I don't want to have to live up to anybody else's expectations. And I had to really figure out, like, am I strong enough to make sure I can do that? And obviously, RCC is such a great church, and things are done completely different here than typically at other churches, which I love. And Janet has led the way, and Janet's Janet, and she is amazing. And so she's led the way in such a healthy way too. So, but yeah, that's scary. That's scary too. I also want to protect you. Yeah. As your wife, I want to keep you.
Just kidding.
You're good.
All right, so you're saying.
But yeah, I think I should have answered that though. I should. Yeah, I want to protect you. I want to make sure that you don't go up on a pedestal and fall. Like, the higher the pedestal, the farther down you fall. And I care about you so much, and I needed to make the decision for myself and know for sure that we as a marriage were strong enough, and then also individually, I needed to make sure I was strong enough to make sure that I could step into that role and carry out that responsibility in a healthy and confident way, because I take it seriously. I really do. Yeah.
It's very humbling to hear you answer that question. Thanks, sweetheart.
If you ever need to know, just come to me.
Awesome.
No.
All right. We're going to call that a wrap.
Oh, goodness, guys. Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We're out. All right. You ready to do this, girlfriend? Awesome.
I'm here.
Awesome. We should be good on time. Okay, we should have plenty of time, so we should be good to go.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do my intro, and then I'll just go into questions, and then we'll just talk for a little while. Thank you for doing this.
You owe me. That was that.
No. This will be good.
I'm excited. All right. I always get this wrong, so we're going to try and get it the first time. All right. Oh, it's so out of practice. It's been like 3 weeks since I've done this. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Unscripted. I'm going to do it one more time. That didn't work.
I make you nervous.
Yes, you do.
Thank you. That's so good.